Welcome to the Career Refresh Podcast. I'm your host, Jill Griffin. I'm a former media and marketing executive turned career strategist and executive coach. I spent my career working my way up and through the ranks of global organizations and startups, and today I show others how to do the same. Join me each week as we discuss the strategies and actionable steps to leverage your strengths, increase your confidence, and develop your career well-being. Ready? Let's do it. Hey everyone, this is Jill Griffin, and welcome back to the Career Refresh Podcast. Today, I am so excited to introduce to you one of my very dear friends, Elena Sonnino. She is an author, she is a life coach, a yoga instructor, yoga teacher, certified yoga teacher, and speaker. And her recent book, Inhabit Your Joy, was the spark of today's conversation. So, hey, Elena, welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh my goodness. Yes. And thank you for having me. I'm so delighted to be here. Who am I? I always answer this differently, which was a funny thing. And just that pretty much might sum me up in a heartbeat.
I love it.
That I answer to many things. I consider myself a coach. I'm a guide. I've always been that person that asks great questions and helps people find their own answers within. And that's really when I think about the foundation of my work and what I've always been in my life. That's been at its core, at my core, whether I was an elementary school teacher, doing that in the classroom, or now as a coach with the women that I work with, who I really help move out of the shadows and behind the walls of survival mode into thriving and possibility, right through the doorways that they create by embodying their truest selves. So whenever I can get somebody into their body and connected with getting rooted, getting curious, and getting fully alive in their body, I feel like I've done a good thing.
I love it. I love it. So for everyone listening, Elena to me is like just this like gorgeous cashmere blanket that you want to kind of like wrap around you and snuggle in. And what I love about her in our friendship too, is that, I am strategic. I am like hardcore business. I'm the one who's like calling no BS. What are we going to do? And Elena can meet me there, but then she also brings me to the other side. She brings me to the softer side of things and being able to, as she said, embody everything. So I know that you are a cancer survivor, and I know that is really a lot of the story. So while many of my listeners may not have had, a story or a chronic condition or a severe illness like yours is 100% a story of resilience, which is what they are definitely going to relate to. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your journey and what brought you here.
Yeah, absolutely. So when in my early 20s, having been a healthy person in my young life up until that point, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it came at a time when everything in my life was on track for the life that I thought I always wanted. I was newly engaged. I was doing the work that I thought I wanted to do, right? I was teaching preschool at the time, knowing that I wanted to go get my master's to become an elementary school teacher because that had been the dream. And then I was diagnosed. And during the first 6 months, as my oncologist said to me, Hodgkin's, he was like, it's like a bread and butter cancer. And I went, what does that mean? Exactly. For someone who was healthy, who was young, I had a very good prognosis. And we were able to pick a chemotherapy regimen that would have low impact on things like fertility, which was also really important to me. And that, I was going to have some side effects, but it seemed pretty manageable. And in all frankness, it was. The worst thing for me during those 6 months was I gained a lot of weight and lost my hair, right? I was the cancer patient who gained weight. Everybody else loses, I gain. And
you're like, I'm giving you my hair. Can I at least keep the weight down?
And also, I used to love Chinese food. We ate Chinese. We ordered Chinese every Wednesday after chemo, which was every 2 weeks. And so I, for years, couldn't eat Chinese afterwards because it just brought me back.
Association, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I went through 6 months of chemo, went into remission, and I'm someone who's probably always been that silver linings kind of girl. And, was always the optimist, was always looking for the lessons. And I think that in those 6 months, I embodied that really fully, right? I didn't maybe allow myself to feel afraid. I was focused on the future. Anything other than survival wasn't really an option. And kept kind of going with my life. This was a blip. And what's interesting is that if I think back, and then tacking on the second part, which I'll tell you about in a moment, I journaled twice in 18 months.
Wow.
And if I look at my desk now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 journals on my desk.
And you wrote a book. So
I wrote a book. I like to write. But I was really numb. So I share this because, it was that bulldoze finish line, which was also the other thing. If I'm going to, describe myself, I'm a goal setter. I like to set goals and achieve them and then end up being perpetually unsatisfied. But that's a story for another time. And so 6 months of chemo, I recurred. I was in remission. And then 3 or 4 months later, I recurred. And at that time, the doctors just were not happy. And my recurrence came with several other random kind of symptoms and side effects. I had to have an emergency surgery that just led to all of these things. And suddenly the future looked very, very different.
Wow.
And the consultations with the oncologist became very, very different. And the choices were no longer, it's like you're at a candy store, choose whichever regimen you would like.
Right.
They really wanted me to have a bone marrow transplant. And this was years of transplants have come so far between, that was 1998 and now. And the good news was that my bone marrow was still healthy.
Wow.
And so they were able to harvest my stem cells from my bone marrow. And, eventually on June 12th, 1998, give me back my really clean, healthy stem cells.
Wow.
Fast forward, and that time, the silver lining was harder to find.
Yeah.
I'm being totally honest. I was sadder. I was angry. I was really angry. And fast forward, the fiance that I had at that time, that didn't last because, we were 24 and that's a little young for all of these things and we just weren't prepared.
Yeah. And a lot of things to be.
And a lot of things, right? Yeah. And so fast forward, one of the things that happened as a result of my bone marrow transplant is that my fertility was likely to be impacted. Everything that I wanted was suddenly there was a question mark on everything. And I remember my oncologist saying to me once, so here's the thing. I don't really know that this is an if. It's really more about a when in terms of a second line recurrence. And so there was always this elephant in the room that I walked around with. What was going to happen? Is my cold really a cold? Eventually, when I did go and get my master's in education, is that cough really a cough? What are all the things? Fast forward many years and I did get married and we decided to try to have a baby. And of course, my body wasn't cooperating like the doctor said would happen. So we went down the road of a donor egg and we were weeks away. You'll appreciate, this was still when there were binders of donor information. It wasn't digitized. So I remember going through
a good trapper keeper filled of donor information.
Right. Bewildering to me now if I think about it.
Right.
And we were weeks away. And I had been at the doctor's office that morning they were prepping my body for what was to come. And then I had gone about my day. I was in my classroom preparing and I get a phone call the doctor. Okay. And the doctor says, so here's the thing, you're 5.5 weeks pregnant.
Wow.
And you would think that I would be thrilled.
Yeah.
Right. And yet I was sobbing, unhappy tears. Because they'd said it wouldn't be possible, A. And B, even if it was, they always said it wouldn't be viable. And everything that I had in my body, the idea of bringing forward something from me with all that toxicity in me was honestly scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the doctor let me cry and then said, so here's the thing. You have a choice. You can grieve or you can celebrate until the day you can't.
Oh my gosh, I love that. It's funny. As you were talking, I just wrote down, working for something so hard and long, getting it, and then not being happy. And that grief, which I know so many of us, I mean, again, your experience is life threatening, whereas for the most of us, our careers aren't, I'd hope. But it's the same thing where we've worked so hard to get to the pinnacle, to get to that thing, get there and just be like,
yeah.
So tell me what you did.
I did that in my career as a classroom teacher. I did that in my marathons, 100%. So when the doctor said that to me, it wasn't even a question. It was a flip of a switch happened inside me that said, "Oh, okay, I choose option B." I mean, it was instinctive.
Yeah.
And that is such a contrast to, those 18 months, years before when I had been sick, I remember feeling like I was in a war room trying to manage and deal with all the uncertainty by trying to control it. There was no way I could control whatever was going to happen.
Right.
So I went home that day and I remember going to the pharmacy to buy a pregnancy test because I needed to see it with my own eyes and a journal to start writing letters to this thing that was the size of a grain of rice. She's now finishing her junior year in high school. So there we go.
I love it. Well done, mama.
And, right. But it was this idea of choosing to celebrate, to be in the experience, even in uncertainty. And that's the part of the story that regardless of, it doesn't have to be a cancer story. It's career, relationships, all of those things that for me, everything comes down to that choice. And honestly, it's a daily choice. And sometimes it's a moment to moment choice. And sometimes we make the other choice and we allow ourselves to stay there, right? For a little bit. But then for me, the work has since then been for myself. And then I realized, maybe I help other people do this too, just by the nature of who I am. Perhaps it's always been what I've done to kind of find that clarity. For a while, I used to call it the sunrise in your pocket. Because if you think about the sunrise, we never question if the sun is going to rise.
Yeah.
We know, even if we can't see it. Now, somebody science-y might say, Elena, the sun doesn't actually rise, but okay, we're not going to go there. Right? It looks different day to day, but it's this idea of inhabiting the choice to say, I'm in it. I'm in it. And I'm willing to explore, and I'm willing to be here in the rainbows and the unicorns, and also the muck and the frustration.
Point, there's no choice. This is what's in front of you. It must be dealt with, and it can be dealt with through sunshine in your pocket or continuing to be in incredible grief and resistance of it all.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And all of it is okay and allowed and necessary, because what I didn't do in those 18 months was feel any of it. And that's numbness.
Yes.
Right. That's when we ignore it, sweep it under the rug.
I always say it's like putting an octopus to bed. Like you think it's not going to come up. It's going to come up somewhere. And then you're like, oh, okay, let me handle that. That's, my stress is over here. Oh no, I'm over drinking. Oh no, I'm overeating. Oh no, I'm numbing out to, whatever it is that I'm numbing out to.
Yeah.
You have to deal and process those emotions.
Absolutely. Because then it allows us to show up in our day, in our work lives, in our personal lives, feeling empowered versus reactive, right? Discerning versus judgmental.
Yeah. Yeah.
Curious.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I want to bring us to this, this joyful book that you've written, Inhabit Your Joy. And again, as you and I were talking, just, as we do, I was saying that I can see so much of this applying to someone who is within their career journey, whether they're staying in a job, looking for a new job, coming back to work, being laid off, having taken time off or a career break because of raising a child or caring for a sick parent or any other reason in between. This idea of nudges. So tell us a little bit about the core premise of this book.
So the book is literally a book of nudges, and it was written that way, one, in an effort to get out of my own way, if I'm being completely transparent, because I have an ability, an Olympic level ability really, to overthink and make things way more complicated than necessary. And so when I thought about really the core of what I did, if I'm thinking about asking questions or just, a gentle nudge to someone, like a distraction, a disruptor, not a distraction, I take that back, a disruptor to introduce a possibility that of something different, right? And realizing that was always something that I did, I started to approach it from that perspective of, all right, what would these nudges be about? And when I think about the idea of inhabiting your joy and being able to make that choice and what it takes to make that choice, 3 pillars emerged, right? The first was to be rooted in the present, to be rooted in your truths, to be rooted in your body, right? Rooted, centered, grounded, whatever word we want to use. And so I knew that was going to be one pillar. The second was this idea of being curious, right? We're really good at fixing. We're really good at judging. But to me, and I've always said, curiosity is one of my superpowers. If expectations are my kryptonite, curiosity is my antidote. And so this idea of what would happen if we could be curious instead. So there are nudges around being curious. And then the last is to be fully alive. This idea of acknowledging that aliveness is the entire experience, the full width of the experience, right? It's the exuberant joy and it's also the grief and sadness. And knowing that we get to be there and navigating, coming back to ourselves, to allow ourselves to be there and to move forward, to choose to celebrate. Okay. So the book is written in that way. And it was intended in a way to be something that could sit on your desk, in your office, and that on any given day, you could just open it and a nudge would find you. And that it might just be the nudge that helped you perhaps come back to yourself.
Okay.
Perhaps help you shift your mindset.
Yeah.
Remind you of the power and the energy that is yours to inhabit and be confident with.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And to then step towards whatever it is you wanted to step towards, feeling empowered and fully alive.
Okay. So let's get it. Let's make it real for anyone who's listening, who's probably going, okay, I get it. A nudge is kind of nudging me along to have a shift in perception, a shift in mindset, maybe giving me a little bit of a refresh on whatever it is that I'm thinking or doing. So let's say that someone is, really dragging, whether it's Monday morning and they're unmotivated, or there's an enormous project in front of them and they know that they need to keep on keeping on. And that project could be anything from their daily work, or that they need to continue to interview and show up for interviews and beyond and ask smart questions and really be present. What would be a nudge that would help them flip a mindset that's unmotivated?
So a nudge, I love this question. There are so many, but if I'm really thinking, one, to me, a lot of things start in the body. Right? When we can come back to the body as that place of energy. So as silly as it might sound, but I think you can do this in your office, or honestly, you could go to the bathroom if you really needed to with AirPods in, and you'll hear where I'm going in just a second. But I love music. And I grew up in that era, like many of us who made mixtapes for our moods and for our friends, right?
Yes.
So, and now we have Spotify playlists and we listen to TikTok and all of the things, or watch TikTok. So to me, the be alive number one nudge is the first piece in terms of getting motivated, right? Find a song, dance to it. Even if you're at your chair and you just allow your body to feel it and you wiggle around a little bit, or you take some movements, or you go into a closet and you just give yourself. Siri agrees with me, apparently.
Yeah, I love that.
So, it's funny because I was like, did I really?
Siri's like, why are you asking for Spotify? I am the queen here.
So that's one, to just turn on some music and let it move you, because that will, if we're thinking about motivation, there's a lack of energy. There's something that's pulling us down. So that this invigoration, and it's very sensory, right? It brings in the senses. The other one that I love that I'm reminded of all the time is I love the word or the phrase hot damn.
Okay.
It's so random and kind of so not me.
Okay.
I love this idea of going on a hot damn experiment.
Okay.
Right? So if your energy is low and you have a project and you're not motivated, just try inserting the word like hot damn and see what comes forward.
Inserting words that kind of bring up your energy.
Yeah. Right. So to me, there's that, this particular idea of not being motivated really invites in the nudges around aliveness. To remember that we get to bring our energy and choose our energy. So that's one place I would start.
I love it. And it makes me smile. Do you find or recommend to people that they create a playlist of music that they have like on the ready or on the go so that they're not like
I do
searching for something when they just need to be uplifted or create whatever the opposite of unmotivated is for them?
Yes. So in a moment of feeling motivated or as if you've got good energy. I mean, I ride the Peloton. So whenever I hear great music on a ride, I'll heart it. So then I remember to go add it to a Spotify playlist, right?
Great.
But you could do this in all the different places we take in sounds, just beginning to notice and play it. I mean, you could frankly go on Instagram or TikTok and find something. And that would probably, if you watch a reel, then you'll probably find music there.
Right. Okay. I love it. Okay. So let's go to another one. Let's say that you need to prepare your mindset for a job interview, or just, it's back and forth. We're hearing that some companies are trying to interview and give you a response within 5 days because they know that the process has been really dragging out and it's hard to keep candidates warm, especially in this market where candidates have much more choice than they've had previously. So whether it's a job interview or whether you're going back for the first interview or the second or 10th, right? If you're in that, internal, external, like what would you recommend for a nudge to get your place into a state of play for a job interview? What nudge would you recommend?
Yeah. So the first one that comes to mind is be rooted number 6. And it's the idea of choosing one word. And the reason I love this, we think, words, people pick words for the year. They pick words for all sorts of things, right? And words have power. And to me, it's less about the word and more about a feeling, right? Again, it kind of comes back. But if I really think about when I'm preparing for something, how I want to feel at the end of that thing. So if you're going into an interview, right, how do you want to feel at the end of that interview that you get to control? So if you then pick one word and then you take a moment, right, and consider. So at the end of my interview, I want to feel blank. That word chooses you oftentimes. And then pause and just notice. Is there a color that represents that word? Is there an image that represents that word? But really allowing yourself to kind of feel it and maybe even think of, other mentors or people that embody that word so that when you're walking in really supported by this energy of what you want to cultivate.
I love that. I love that.
So that's the first. The other one that comes to mind is this idea of before you go in, because sometimes we have all the thoughts about what could happen. We have expectations. Taking a moment to take like a power pose. And this is one of the Be Alive nudges. But just
that actually can work too, because most interviewing is being done on video right now. So people can actually do it at home in the privacy of whatever room they're interviewing in.
Absolutely. And so if you have a word, then you can really feel that word into, right? So for me, my shape is standing, even seated, even just doing this and opening my arms and lifting my gaze opens my heart. And so then I'm really standing in my power and in that energy that is mine to illuminate. And so
we're not on video, everyone, she's kind of putting herself as sponsored by the letter Y. If we're thinking about Peloton, right? But she's standing in a very wide stance with her arms out and just sort of stretching in a stretch, kind of bringing in energy mode. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay. Let's do one more. So what about anxiety? I hear a lot about Sunday Scaries, people getting ready on Sunday, the day before work or the day before a big event, sort of trepidation, maybe a little bit of anxiety, low hum of fear. What would you recommend as a nudge to get them out of that state of mind?
So my favorite nudge for this is a brain dump. And I learned this practice after reading Julia Cameron's The Artist Way, which is about creativity. But what I realized was that by journaling, by just allowing my thoughts to exist on paper, I was giving them a place to exist that then I didn't have to hold on to them. So if I wake up with a lot of thoughts on my brain, or I know that I'm looking forward to an afternoon session, a client session, a meeting or whatever, and I don't know what's coming, and all of this catastrophizing is happening in my mind, I just take a moment, and sometimes it can be, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. You can use a Post-it, the back of an envelope or a journal, and whatever's in your brain just goes onto the page.
So sort of like Marie Kondo it. Take everything out. Marie Kondo the brain.
And put it. Yeah. And you're not changing it. You're certainly not ignoring it. You're allowing it to take up space, but there's something happens. We start to detach from it a little bit when we allow it to flow out onto the page. And so it's a little bit like, it is 100% Marie Kondoing, right? I think of it as decluttering. Yep. So yes.
Yeah. I love it.
The second, and this goes along with that, is the question, what do I know for sure in this moment? Okay. So if it's before a big, Sunday Scaries, the before a meeting, whatever it is, coming back to what do I absolutely know for sure in this moment? And if you're not sure what you know, right? If the brain wants to go start projecting, start with the physical things you see in front of you, right? I know that the sky is gray right now. I know that there is a bluebird outside my window. Yeah. I know that my desk has a lot of stuff on it, right? Start with that. And then just allow, because it brings you back to the present.
And it brings a lot of times to what you can be certain about. You can be certain that the sky, if you're looking at it, is blue at this moment, or it's gray, or there's a bird outside your window. It's bringing you back to certainty. Yep. I see that. I see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So those are both two different being rooted nudges that I think would help.
I love it. Okay. So tell everyone where they can find you, where they can get your book, if they want to read more about your work, how they can use this work, your work in their daily work. Tell them.
Absolutely. So tell the people, you can find me on my website, elenasonnino.com. There is a tab for the book. You can go there, find it. And there are practices, all sorts of deliciousness that you can find at the website. And the place on social media to find me is Instagram. I like to hang out there and occasionally do really silly reels.
That's right. We might have done some of those silly reels together.
We have. Yes. We were full of delight.
Well, this was a treat as always. I could talk to you forever. But I love that you just kept it simple and gave people a couple of simple tools for what they can do to create a shift in perception, refresh their minds, and be able to get back to whatever it is that they want to achieve. And in a fun and simple way, right? A different way than what they typically hear around career and work. So I thank you. I love you. You know that. And this was a real treat. So I'll probably call you later.
Thank you, Jill. I love you too. I love it. I'm in.
All right, my friend. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Career Refresh podcast. If you're enjoying this and you want more information, go to my website, jillgriffincoaching.com. There you can find information on how to work with me one-on-one, or my group programs, or even bring me into your workplace. I'll put the link to my website in the show notes. But hey, listen, before you go, do me a favor, rate and review this podcast, because it definitely helps me get the word out to people everywhere so that they can also thrive in the workplace. All right, friends, I appreciate you. I'll see you soon.